I'm a trans woman and I'm proud, and they'll never be able to take that from me.
Trans women are now not legally recognised as a woman. Sorry to make it about me, but I get married this summer. And I don't know if that means I'm getting legally married as a man or a woman.
Woke up today to find out the UK Supreme Court has ruled that trans women are no longer legally women. What are you? What are you? UK Supreme Court rules legal definition of woman is based on biological sex. I guess that sums it up right there, reading it. It means that your biological sex is what is marked at birth. So in other words, it's something you're born with, like blonde hair, blue eyes, a dead twin. Like, it just comes with it. You know, J.K. Rowling is celebrating. J.K. Rowling has in fact had a margarita after this. It's crazy to think about. I was just thinking about, it's so wild how she is the author of Harry Potter. I know that sounds like, yeah, duh, bitch. But I mean, like, to be involved in this particular political fight in the UK, and it's like she's the author of Harry Potter. She's not a politician. She's not previously an activist of really any kind. So it's been the craziest arc, and only, you know, the trans community could just be so insufferable that they end up giving J.K. Rowling like a Rosa Parks narrative. Like, y'all gave her like a modern, like, she's the new Miss Rosa, just like dealing with all the trans shit, because that's how bad it's gotten, especially in the UK. This makes sense with the recent, obviously, cultural shift with how the world is seeing trans issues, and 90% of how the world is, you know, perceiving trans issues on the negative side, like have a negative perspective of it, is because of the behavior of trans people and trans activists. We all know this is what I've been saying forever. I feel like I talk about it a little less lately because it's just so annoying. It's just so insufferable. I hoped that, you know, this last election in the US, there would maybe be sort of like a new perspective within the trans community, at least the ones with like maybe like a higher than like 80 IQ, to like recalibrate how they do things and, you know, just add a little sanity into what has become a very insane movement. But it really hasn't happened. It really, you know, there's been a few people, but for the most part, it's just like, I still see y'all saying the same shit that got the legal backlash here in the US that it has. Summer is coming up, and I know that you want to feel confident in your own skin and your body just like I do. So let's talk about something that is revolutionizing the weight loss industry: Hypnosio. This is not your typical diet app though. Hypnosio is a revolutionary self-hypnotherapy tool that tackles the subconscious reasons behind weight loss struggles. Unlike fad diets and grueling workouts, Hypnosio uses guided hypnotherapy tools to address stress cravings, emotional eating, poor habits, all the root causes to weight gain. And it's science-backed. Research shows that people who use hypnotherapy actually lose twice as much weight as those who don't. And they actually keep it off for over 18 months. Whether you're a busy professional, a parent, or a yo-yo dieter, you're just always on the go, which is me, Hypnosio actually helps you build a healthier relationship with food. Its neural pathway restructuring and subconscious barrier elimination technology rewires your habits for lasting change. It's affordable, accessible on any device. You can download it on the App Store or Google Play. Trust me, your mind and your body will very much thank you. So what are you waiting for? Use the link in my description box or my pinned comment below and grab 15% off your first subscription. Thank you so much to Hypnosio for sponsoring today's video. And now on to the video, which is like just no backtracking on like sex changes for minors and trans women and women's sports. That's the one. I think trans women and women's sports is even less popular. It's probably less popular even than trans kids. Like the sports thing, I would have thought for sure, at least you guys were like, okay, let me yank that back, but no. And honestly, I frankly would be more concerned about the fact that y'all don't have free speech over there. If I was living in the UK, whether I was trans or not, I would be more concerned about the fact that I couldn't get a gun or speak freely, or that y'all arrest people over memes. Like, you know, it's already Gitmo of a country. And a lot of people in the trans community are going apocalyptic over this. Obviously, we'll react to some of their videos. But before that, I have to say, it's really not the, you know, nuclear holocaust that y'all are acting like it is within the community, because it's not as if discrimination against trans people is suddenly legal in the UK. You cannot legally be discriminated against if you're trans. Those protections still exist. So all it's really doing is, reinforcing what always was the case, which is that biological sex is, legally speaking, is something at birth. And I'm someone who has it here in the US, obviously, changed my gender marker, and no, it has not changed since. It is sick and twisted, though, how I have so many comments from like libs who really are just psychopathic. It's in their nature. It's something they're born with, like that dead twin we talked about, like that hair color, like that biological sex. But the activists really are insane, because I'll get comments like, how's that passport, sis? How's that vote feeling? And it's like, first of all, I know that you wish I was over here suffering, but the amount of ways in which my life has changed since Trump came in office is actually zero. Like, not one thing about my life, legal standing, existence, literally nothing has changed. And so that's just when it's the difference between the internet and, politics and real life. But I would be guessing for the trans people over in the UK that are, genuinely not harmful people, right? That fraction that does exist within the community that I know exists and that I will always still defend, they wouldn't have to be dealing with this inconvenience if y'all had not put male rapists in women's prisons. Like, when there's a man with a penis engaging in sexual actions in a women's prison as a fellow prisoner, that's kind of when you have to start looking at legal sex categorization, right? That's kind of when you have to start being like, okay, so what exactly is our system of like legality in biological sex? Because something's not working out, right? Like, something's clearly wrong. If any one political group deserves the most blame, perhaps sole blame for any legal backlash or inconveniences trans people are going to face, it's Democrats. Democrats are trans people's worst enemy. They push the most retarded policies on our behalf. They do anything and everything to platform the worst examples among us. I was just thinking about how, it's so funny. I was having this thought today about how everyone loves an ugly tranny ass bitch. Listen to my sentence. Everybody loves an ugly tranny ass bitch. Let it hit. Feel it, and you're gonna get what I mean. Because the way that trans people, like, I know attractive, normal, for which attractiveness is a virtue. It is a virtue. It is an aesthetic which has value. And just being normal presenting, like, I think of people like Carmen Carrera, she's a little bit lived out, but I do think that she's mostly not. And like, they used to platform better people in the media, is what I'm saying. The representation of trans people, there was a brief window where it was actually pretty good. Laverne Cox, she's a lib, but at least she's like an actress who like does things. And like, it's since devolved into like Dylan Mulvaney or like rapist. The only trans people you're going to see in the media now is like Dylan Mulvaney or some rapist. So for me, it's kind of like, who are the ones doing that? Definitely not the conservatives. They will react to what you're putting out there, which is the most extreme trans shit. And also by virtue of ignoring extreme things, which is a lot of what we saw in the UK, allowing male rapists in women's prisons, so much extreme stuff in the UK. All of that is just like due backlash. It's very due. It's so due. So trans people thought they could crash out, right? They could push for every extreme law, and then Democrats monetize that and platform that and politicize that and made it this huge thing. And it's just like, oh my God, it's become like a big, nasty transgender spaghetti monster. And it's just like, it's so separate from my own perception of what trans is, my own perception and understanding of my life and my place in society as a trans person. Like, it's just weird. It's just weird. But you know what? Everything's getting weird the older I get. Everything's fucking weird. But let me shut up and let's watch some reactions from the trans community on TikTok over this new UK law. Woke up today to find out the UK Supreme Court has ruled that trans women are no longer legally women. What are you? What are you? I can't tell if you're just a man in a muumuu defending trans women, or if you're up here purporting to be someone being victimized by this law and you are in fact a trans woman. But I gotta say, it's like, you can just see, it's like, if this is someone whose gender was changed to M legally, that is the correct decision. Because I'm looking at a beard combined with a muumuu. And I just feel like,
Probably heard about this Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of the word woman. This will have some real serious implications. It will have some consequences. But I want to tell you one thing. They can make their laws. They can specify their definitions. They can take away my rights. But there's one thing that they'll never be able to take from me. And that's who I am.
again, correct decision if this individual's gender marker was changed to M. I just have to say, capital M, capital M. It's crazy because, like, in the midst of being highly uncomfortable with seeing the tops of the whites of this gentleman's eyes, right? You never want to see the top of the white, right? Just, you never want to see above, right? That means crazy. While I was uncomfortable viewing that, right, I was having an internal dialogue with myself, and I was like, you know, it's crazy because I grew up and, you know, I had like a little bit of an alternative, you know, aesthetic growing up. So because of that, I've always had just like a personal virtue that I don't judge a book by its cover. I really try hard not to assume about the insides based on the outsides. And yet the drugs do manifest on the outside oftentimes. So this is a scary person. This is a scary person. And I don't know all the intricacies of the UK, but if prior to this individual were to be arrested per se, and then be placed into a women's prison because of whatever previous laws were, you know, there, then who's mad at that? Who's mad at that? I don't know. So this next one is from a trans woman who I've seen a few of her YouTube videos, and I know that she's a supporter of mine, and I think she's pretty cool. And so I thought, you know, seeing her thumbnail, she's obviously very upset and she lives in the UK. I want to see what her perspective is and see if we can get, you know, both sides of this thing.
I'm a trans woman and I want to talk about it if that's okay. This new law isn't going to protect or help anyone. People can now stop and say to you, you don't look like a woman to me. Are you a biological man? Women are going to have that. I'm sick of being blamed for men's behaviour time and time again. A man doesn't have to put on a dress and a wig to go into a woman's space and do something bad. They can do it anyway. If you don't know what goes into transition, it's not just a switch that we flip. I had to be legally diagnosed with gender dysphoria. I had to go through a psychological evaluation. I have had 8 surgeries. I had to prove myself time and time again to get my gender recognition certificate, which I got earlier on this year. To now be told that I'm not legally recognised as a woman. I get married this summer. Sorry to make it about me, but I get married this summer. And I don't know if that means I'm getting legally married as a man or a woman, which really sucks.
She seems like a lovely person, so we're not dragging her. I'm definitely not going to drag her. But what I was thinking about as I watched it is, I think that oftentimes we get very much attached to government confirmation, legal confirmation. And I'm not saying that, like, I wouldn't be maybe a little shook if this happened at first here as well, just because I know I'm a normal person. And so it's not something that needed to be changed because of me, but we unfortunately have to recognize that there are people in the trans community that they are the cause of this. And what I mean by that, as far as getting just overly attached to legalistic aspects, is like, the government could never tell me who I am. The government won't even tell you who it is. There's nothing about my spirit, nothing about my soul, nothing about my existence as, you know, a sovereign human being on this planet, on this rock, floating through space, in this realm. Nothing would be changed based on how a government views me. And also, I think this just makes me feel thankful for the point in life I'm at right now, which I know is not for everybody, but just like less connected to materialism in the world and like this fake ass, matrix that has been constructed for us. I'm just a little closer to God, a lot closer to God. I'm a lot closer to like my purpose beyond any of this shit regardless. And I know that that doesn't erase anything in the immediate, in real life, pragmatic ways that, affect us every day. But you're able to cope with a lot of stuff and put things in perspective, I think, when you are able to sort of transcend the barriers of this, world, regardless, just spiritually. And I do disagree with her that this wouldn't, she made a statement that this isn't going to protect women. I think it will, hon. I think it will. Not from you, because I can tell, you can just tell someone's spirit just even through a screen sometimes. And this is a very nice person who would never be a problem for anybody. But we just watched 2 videos of people who their existence is summed up by the fact that they are the walking embodiment of a problem. Like they were most definitely not supposed to be legally classified as women. And so I actually do think this is going to help women. Sometimes you have to bring things down to perspective. And in my opinion, a letter on an ID that never is seen anyways, right? Like no one even who sees your gender marker. I guess if you're like going into clubs, a bouncer at a club, but like I remember having an M for a while at the very start of mine, and like they're not zooming in on what letter the M or F is, like in the corner. Like it's just not as big of a deal as I think people are making it out to be. You can still accomplish everything you want to accomplish. In fact, if you look at it from the lib perspective, you may be able to accomplish more with an M on your ID, right? There's a perspective that would actually propel you farther. You might get hired. I don't agree with that perspective, but I do agree with the perspective that there's privileges to living as both F and M. But we can talk about some issues with IDs I'm having, which is the fact that we have to get this real ID. And I hate y'all bootlickers. There's a lot of bootlickers on the conservative and liberal side, doesn't matter, who are like, don't fearmonger about the real ID. It's just this, that. Check the origin of real ID. It is a post 9/11 law that we are just now seeing the effects of in the form of real ID. This was something that was decided in the haze of the 9/11 crisis, just like the Patriot Act. Nothing good came out of that time, and I don't think the real ID did either, right? Back when I didn't have to get sexually assaulted every time I went through an airport because some Muslim flew a plane into a building and I had no control. Like, why do I got to get gripped up? Why do I got to get groped on? Because he did that. Okay, yeah, this world makes sense. This is all real. So make sure you subscribe to this podcast channel as well as my main channel. Follow me on X, TikTok, and Instagram. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify. And thank you so much to Hypnosia for sponsoring today's video. Go check them out. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Blaire White Project podcast. Bye.